Hey everyone, welcome to a quick Steel City Rings podcast. We want to announce that Captain Cam Heyward, has finally come to an agreement with the Steelers on a new 3-year deal, which is really exciting. The contract is 3 years for $45 million. It includes $16 million worth of guaranteed money. That works out to roughly like $29 million in new money. And it certainly helps to kind of put to rest this whole issue of whether they sign Cam before the season or if they drag this all the way out to the end of next year. I know we've talked about it on the show before. I am always like Team Cam and Pro Cam, depending on the figures. I know that we've had other conversations. What do you guys think about this extension?
I think
Yeah,
it was good. It kind of was an interesting canceling out because he had 16 million left on his contract and they guaranteed 16 of it. So they were like, "Listen, we'll take care of everything we were going to pay you. We'll give you a bit more." And I think it's important to know for anyone who thinks this is overpaying. Cam right now ranks about 20th, as far as defensive lineman paid, and to me, that's good. I I got kind of upset the first moment I saw that we had re-signed him because I was worried. I'm not worried about this. I think it puts it in the rearview mirror. It frees up like $9 million for us in cap this season, which is nice if we want to pay someone else. So I like it overall.
yeah. I mean, I don't love the idea of 3 for 45 is basically what he gets. Although Zach's right, 16 of it was already guaranteed. He was going to get paid that
Right.
money either way. So, okay, fine. We basically guaranteed this year for him, and then 2 years, 29 million at tacked on 14 and a half a year. I mean, I would have been a lot happier with 10, 12 a year, but this isn't out of the realm. It's not egregiously overpaying, which is what I was always worried we were going to do with him. Also gives the Steelers a lot of leverage. I mean, if he plays well this year, yeah, he probably will get at least next year at the 14 and a half. But, let's say he slips a little bit and he plays pretty well. Let's say he has like 7, 8 sacks. He's okay against the run. He's a nice rotational piece. The Steelers have that same hammer they used on Ben Roethlisberger, they used on Jerome Bettis to come in and say, hey, man, we want you to stay, but we ain't paying you 14 and a half. And there's nothing that says they have to at this
Right.
point. So you hope he earns the money. You hope he continues to play. But it is set up for if the Steelers need to be friendly or get cap friendly, he's a potential cap casualty.
To me, this really screamed that Hayward showed the Steelers what they needed to see during the preseason, during training camp. That he is close enough or at 100% of where he was before his injury last season. We talked about it before, that narrative from fans about Cam Heyward being this injury riddled old man are really false. He has not been injured often, hardly at all. I think it was 4 years prior to this injury since the last time he missed any significant time with an injury. But to me, that says that they saw what they needed to see. They were being judicious prior to the start of preseason and saying, we don't even know how you look yet, so let's give it a little time. And saw that and saw what they needed to see. They saw that Cam, came and worked out, was a team player. He wasn't holding out to the last second or anything crazy. And I think they worked out a contract that, like you said, Bob, just makes sense. He was already getting that 16 million this year, so you're really not doing anything different except you're giving him that kind of like handshake deal that, like, we want to keep you as long as you're performing well. Do you know what I mean? Beyond this year, here's our show of good faith that we want you to stay a Pittsburgh Steeler for 2 more years beyond this season. And then your show of good faith is that you're willing to kind of come in at this number. And then, like you said, I mean, everybody knows that can change if it has to. And I don't think Omar Khan would be skittish about doing it. I think he's shown that he's willing to make those tough decisions.
Mm. And don't discount the fact that I'm not bashing Patrick Peterson. It has to be important, but I keep coming back to the fact that he was supposed to be in a mentor role. Things did not advance the way that our defensive line was supposed to be awful. Don't discount Cam Hayward's impact on the growth of these guys through this camp and why we may have seen that oomph out of them. So that's me. I'll take that hit. I'm sorry, Cam. I did not think that you had that in you this season after what happened in the offseason, but you switched off whatever happened in the offseason, turned on the Steeler way, and it apparently worked because that's a 180 on a defensive line. And Cam Heyward is a captain again, so that lets me know that it's going to be okay. That it wasn't just that Cam himself is okay. Cam's impact is okay.
Yeah.
And
the D line went
good,
from being like one of the most troubled rooms on the team to being something that we're like, oh, okay, you know, we don't need to panic over that anymore.
Right, and I see we have a question about it. If they think Cam signed because of how well Keanu is doing. I do. I think he saw that Keanu Benton has supplanted him as the best lineman. He's better than Ogunjobi still. Cam is. I don't think he's as good as Benton, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's two really good defensive linemen that we have. But you got, DeMarvin Leal looked really good in training camp in the preseason.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, Montrevious Adams is never going to be a frontline guy. If he is, we have a problem. But he's a very good depth piece. So. Yeah, I mean, I think he looked around and went from you need me, you don't have anybody else to okay, I better get under contract because maybe they don't need me if this group plays really well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair because last season without Cam, we saw the struggle. I mean, it was real. Do you know what I mean? So it would be understandable for him to think like, you need me. When in early episodes of our podcast, I was saying that, you know what I mean? That we need Cam. Like we don't have anybody right now to take that, to take his place. Like it still looked like, maybe Benton wasn't quite there yet. Do you know what I mean? And the whole thing looked kind of disorganized. Leal wasn't performing as well as he did this past preseason. And then you saw it all kind of come together. And, I give Cam some credit for that. I think he's an outstanding leader on the team in general, but, in particular with his group. And you hear Keanu Benton talk a lot about how much he's helped him progress, him and the other veterans. He's given credit to all of them, have helped him progress. And so, I think that he has a role to play in that, but I certainly agree. I think he started to see that, there's no one who's indispensable. Maybe TJ Watt, but nobody else is indispensable.
I mean, am I happy we signed him? Yes, ultimately, I'm glad he's going to finish his career as a Steeler. Do I think he's some all-time leader? No, I don't. I've said it a lot over the last couple of months. I used to think that, but then I really looked at it. I mean, and I saw on social media yesterday going around, oh, Cam deserves better. He's only 1-7 in the playoffs. Yeah, you know what? Cam is only 1-7 in the playoffs, and we've gotten our doors blown off the last 5 games on defense.
Yeah.
Pretty sure Cam Heyward is the defensive captain. He couldn't lead the team to giving up less than 31 points. Although, in fairness, I guess, this was the best season we had last season. So maybe there's some hope for this season with only giving up 31. But the defense has been really, really, really bad in the last 5 playoff games.
I will say, though, and I always say that, the caveat for our defense the past several seasons has to be how bad our offense has been. Do you know what I mean? I think when they're playing the majority of the time, they're out there the majority of the time. As soon as they get to the sideline, they have to turn around and go back in because we are constantly going out 3 and out. Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. To me, I think, that definitely plays a role. We saw in every game, we saw them decline as the game went on, as they got more and more tired. So, I hope that with our new defensive players this season, and hopefully everybody stays healthy, and hopefully the offense is good enough to at least give them a breather on the sideline, that kind of shows us what we're paying for with this most expensive defense in the NFL.
Yeah, and Leeann, I can agree that last season with the Bills and Pickett and Trubisky and Mason, even though Mason played pretty well at the end of the year, he didn't play great in the playoff game. So there was the defense on the field a lot. And I could definitely go with the Kansas City. We were way overmatched, other than the TJ Miracle where we all had visions of upset for a quarter. But the Browns game, the Jaguars game, the Patriots game, I don't give the defense a pass for that because that was Ben, the Killer Bees, and not 2020 the Killer Bees, but Yeah, that was a good offense in 2020.
Yeah.
So I can't get on board with the pass then, but I can
Yeah,
sort of
that's
get on board.
back then is fair.
Yeah.
No. Two quick things. I'm curious, Bob. So we on the Steelers, we've been spoiled. We've had incredible leaders like the guys in the '70s, and we've had Jerome Bettis's, we've had Heinz Ward's, and all that. So are you saying that Cam Hayward isn't an all-time Steelers leader or an all-time NFL leader? Because I'm just wondering how you're comparing.
I don't
I agree with the Steeler thing, but on an NFL scale, do you think he's still not that kind of a leader?
No, I think if you're going to be a great leader, you have to produce in the playoffs. I mean, you have to, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you personally do, but if you're the team captain, you got to at least have a couple wins. I mean, that's, okay, I can give you a pass that you couldn't get the team all the way to the Super Bowl, but I mean, never mind Steelers guys for a minute, who I think are some of the all-time best leaders that have ever played in the NFL. Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor, even a guy like Bruce Smith, who lost 4 Super Bowls, they had a lot of success. And I can't put him in that category. I can't. Not to mention the fact that, I don't think a leader is starting fights in training camp. And if it was one fight, I wouldn't give him a hard time. But it's a running joke. When's Cam going to start a fight? And that's been his whole career. So I don't know how great of a leader he is. Now, that being said, he's the captain. He's won Walter Payton Man of the Year. Do I hope he gets some wins at the end of his career? And maybe he can be considered, yes. But I do think you got to be, especially as fractured and as discombobulated as the locker room was over the really since AB and the Killer Bees hit the downward trajectory. I haven't seen a whole lot of leadership in the Steelers locker room, as far as I'm concerned, since really Palomalu left.
My last point is that I'm not expecting Cam to have a ridiculous, huge breakout season, but what I will be looking to Cam is when things go rough. Every defense has times when things go rough, and I'm wondering if that's what a big part of what happened last season. Cam's seen everything pretty much an NFL player can see other than a Super Bowl. So when things go rough, if he misses a play or does that, he can
or an
kind of psych
AFC
himself and get him.
championship game.
Yeah.
He can kind of get himself back after knowing it's one bad play. I got to play after. You got young players that might have gotten in their own heads last season that Cam may not have been there to say, hey, you got to let that go. And that impacted it. So this year, when things go bad, I'm going to look to Cam to be the calming force on the defense that maybe wasn't there last year. Because if he can't do that, then I will start to wonder why we paid him, because that's a big part of it. You got to calm your guys down and tell them this is not forever. We're going to have good stuff. That was a bad play. Just get over it. So that's what I'll be looking for.
Quick question for both of you. Do you think Cam is that guy, or do you know Minka is that guy? Because that's how I think it is. I think Minka pulls it together when the chips get down.
For my opinion, I mean, and obviously, look, I'm not there. None of us are there on the sidelines to hear what happens. Do you know what I mean? But Cam definitely has some sort of pull with the players. Do you know what I mean? They listen to him. They respect him. When Deontay Johnson and Minka almost came to blows, Cam was one of the people that helped break up that situation, who called like a team meeting in the locker room that everybody's going to like settle down and we're not attacking each other. Do you know what I mean? And so I definitely think he's respected. I think Minka is too. I think they're just different people, different personalities who lead in very different ways. Do you know what I mean? I think Cam is more vocal and loud and outspoken, whereas I think Minka tends to lead, very quietly and, more within the team than us seeing that publicly all the time. I think, I think they're both excellent leaders. I think TJ Watt's a leader in his own right, but I don't know that we actually, he's not somebody that comes to mind immediately, as like somebody who's one of the best leaders on the team. But then here he is named a captain this year, which was interesting.
Yeah, I might get in trouble for this, and people might be upset, but it's been a while since I've seen a Steeler defense that looked like they had someone consistently that had things under control and to calm things down when things got out of. It seemed like a lot of times the miscommunications just kept happening and people just kept getting frustrated, and it's been years. So that needs to change this year. So I'm hoping that the Cam impact, I'm hoping the Minka thing, because he can get back to playing Minka ball. And that's
Yeah.
what been talked about, get back to what Minka does best. Because just like we were talking about Cam Sutton being used out of position, I'm not comparing Cam Sutton to Minka, but Minka was misused last year too
Oh,
because we had
100%.
to.
Yeah, 100%.
So you're going to have a happier Minka, you're going to have a paid Cam, and you're going to have a TJ who feels like he has all the pieces for the first time in his career.
Yeah.
So,
I'm hoping that this offseason they have this resurgence of youth with all these young guys. We didn't bring in a veteran cornerback, didn't bring back Patrick Peterson, who in his own right was given a lot of credit for being a strong leader. But you've got all these young guys and you see this kind of resurgence of youth. And I hope that it's helped to like reset the balance of the scales, like it used to be on defense. I think you bring up a good point, Zach, that you used to have those James Farriers and those guys that were kind of that like solid leader of the defense, that got everybody together regardless of what position they played and made a big impact. And so whether that's all Cam or all Minka or all TJ or, a combination of the couple of them, I hope that they're able to kind of settle things down this year, pull those younger guys in, reteach the Steeler way and get this defense to be something cohesive.
Well, one thing I'll say is the Steelers' defense is best when an inside linebacker is leading the team. So a guy like Shazier, guys like Lambert, guys like Levon Kirkland, guys like Farrier, we have had historically great defenses when the guy in the middle is the leader. And I think, I think Minka had already kind of taken the role a couple of years ago in the Baltimore game when he chewed out Cam Heyward on the sideline for getting a dumb penalty. Was it a bad call? Yes, it was kind of debatable. But as a defensive player, if you're standing on that pile, you start grabbing people, you're giving the refs an excuse to call it. But do I love the idea of a safety? Troy was a leader, but he wasn't necessarily the leader on the defense. I think if Patrick Queen steps into that role, and we paid him a lot of money to do this, I think we can then turn around and have those historical. Doesn't mean you're the best defender on the team, but if Patrick Queen becomes the unquestioned leader of the defense and plays to that level, then the Steelers' defense becomes a monster. Because if you can't throw the ball over the middle of the field and you can't run, good luck holding the ball long enough for anybody to get deep.
Well, I don't think Farrier was necessarily the best defender on the team. Do you know what I mean? But he backed up his talk. Do you know what I mean? He played well enough to have everybody's respect. But there was something about the way that he just commanded that group that, he was just the unquestioned leader of that group. And so, like you said, maybe that works out to be, Queen once he settles in. I don't think it really matters. We just need somebody to step up and do that.
Yep. I do think it'll be. We paid Queen to do it, and he's only 24 years old. So long term, I really
he's got that personality too. He's got that kind of personality. Like I think Troy was a lead by example guy, not a vocal leader, because that just wasn't in his nature to be that rah guy. You need somebody that, is willing to get in people's faces when they need to get in people's faces, but can also, pick people up when they need to be picked up. And, you hear Troy barely ever even lost his temper, do you know what I mean? Let alone, blasted guys for making stupid mistakes. So I think he always led by example and absolutely was a leader on the team, but not that kind of leader that we're talking about.
Yeah. All right. So I guess we're all on board with, we don't really have much choice to not be on board.
Didn't ask your opinion.
Amazingly, Omar does not run his decisions by us.
Shocking.
Yet.
We appreciate everybody who joined us tonight and listened. Please make sure you share, and subscribe to the podcast. See us on Twitter. You can see us on all social media platforms. We definitely want to hear from you. We'll have a new episode of the show coming up at the end of this week. And if you have questions or comments, or you want to tell us what you think about Cam signing or anything else, hit one of us up or hit the show up.
Absolutely. And if you want to see more of me and Zach, we're going to be on the Steelers Sanctuary podcast in about 30 minutes to talk with Dave and do some Steeler predictions. We're going to do Steeler predictions on Friday on our podcast. So looking forward to seeing everybody then.
Yep.
Okay, have a good night.